Thank you, B. Wait a minute. Now, B said that I write fables, the main stories. I think I'm a realist, and this is from my new book that I hope comes out this year. And there's a quote in there from the late and great Gore Vidal. He said, "America is a sanctimonious society of hustlers. Thus, they don't like realists." I'm not calling you a hustler, you know. The rule is you cover up my scam and I'll cover up yours. Okay, so that's one of the themes. But this new book is about Syracuse, not Maine. It's got to be a New York book. It's not a Maine book, even though I'm the narrator and I'm from Maine. The title right now, the working title is That Radical from Maine. And it's subtitled, The Race Riots of Syracuse. It was interesting that Sherry mentioned Onondaga because in Syracuse, the Native American kids that I taught were Onondagas, Mohawks, and Oneidas. And then when I returned home in Orono, I had our Native Americans, Penobscots, Passamaquoddies, and Micmacs. So it's been an interesting trip as a teacher of 53 years, incidentally. In this book, I'm talking about the race riots of Syracuse, but the race riots don't happen until later in the book, so my editor said, you've got to say something up front about the race riots, because he kept saying, where are the race riots? But I felt I had to bring in the whole thing of me being from down East Maine and ending up in the inner city in the 60s and 70s teaching black kids, and what that was all about. I had to write this book, obviously. It had to come out of me in some condition. I also want to say the federal government, in its great wisdom, I don't know who was responsible for this exactly, but I ended up in a program in performing arts. Somebody in Washington decided when the race riots were going on from coast to coast that and here we are again incidentally, and they thought, well, in the schools then we need to change the curriculum. And one of the things they did in Syracuse is one of 8 cities that they picked. And we had to imagine doing this, the idea of this. In a regular school year of 40 weeks in New York, we were to produce, with 100 kids, we were supposed to produce a full-length drama, a comedy, a musical, and a play written by the kids themselves. We did it. Honest to God, we did it. But incredible. I thought, these people are crazy. But we did it. So, and I was forced into this. They picked me as the English teacher. Kids could get 3 credits. They could get an English credit, social studies, and theater and music. And I want to emphasize the theater and music person because I loved working with him. He was brilliant, marvelous, very talented, but he was a raging alcoholic. And it was a very difficult 3 years that I put in with him. Anyway, at the beginning of the book, here's what I say about the riots. The morning of the first race riot, there were 2 in my high school. The morning of the first race riot, I remember standing in a first-floor hallway of Monahan High School in Syracuse, New York, thinking to myself that we'll never be able to teach like we did before. This was no mere disruption of a regular school day. I was witnessing a revolution that was sweeping the country. This was pre-Columbine, in fact the Columbine High School looked a lot like the one in Syracuse. This was pre-Columbine 30 years before, and there were no guns involved, but there were baseball bats, and it was awful, scary, and confusing, because it was our own students fighting each other. It felt right, though, because it was time, and I say that because our school before that, there were areas you couldn't go into if you were white or black. Tables in the cafeteria, you can't sit here because you're black or you're white. And the same with bathrooms. Throughout the school it was like that. The tension was terrible, and so something had to happen, and it did. And then I had this note, because later, as time went on, as we started to go back to normal, in quotation marks, of the school day, you'd hear these strange things over the PA system. For instance, after the first so-called racial disturbance at Monahan, where I taught for 12 years, 1967 to 1979, over the PA system, the administration conveyed a code that served as a warning to those in the know. It was a simple but mysterious statement. The teachers from Canada aren't coming. You'd be teaching American literature, and they'd say stuff like this. When they heard that, all the administrators and a few select teachers and staff members knew what to do, where to go, and how to assume their special posts for the emergency. The rest of us had no idea about such a code, that there even was a threat of an emergency. There were 2,000 kids in this school, about 100 teachers. We did, however, realize that there was the possibility of startling and strange sudden announcements over the PA in the middle of classes during those troubled times. But of course, nobody knew what to do. That's, of course, the point, anyway. But they also had, besides performing arts, in our high school, we had a multicultural program and also a special journalism print shop group, too. And then we had regular classes going on at the same time. It was really a strange scene. So I'm going to just read the first part of this because there's not enough time to do the whole thing. But I ended up working with a man, I call him Will. His real name was Ed Sturdivant, and his father was the Lieutenant Governor of Mississippi. So you had Mississippi and Maine, two white guys, and then you had to have a black teacher also, and that was Norm Caldwell from Bay Minette, Alabama. And he was, I loved working with Norm. He was a fighter pilot in Vietnam, a black fighter pilot. And of course that must have been kind of unique, you know? And I didn't think of that until years later. But I remember one day when Norm was having trouble with his students, he came over to me and said, Sandy, I'm going to go back in the Air Force and get a plane and strafe this school. This school shouldn't exist. Anyway, I want to emphasize, though, Ed, because he's unforgettable and I love writing about him. And he was brilliant, everybody. It's another of those tragic stories of a man, good-looking guy, brilliant, like Richard Burton or somebody. He was from the Delta. He was from Mississippi. And he ended up being on Broadway as a stand-in for Andy Griffith. He looked sort of like Andy Griffith also. In No Time for Sergeants, the play, the big play. And that sent him to Hollywood, where he worked at MGM and also Disney, and I think other studios, but those are the two he talked about. And that's where he got fired from both of them, too. Anyway, this is the beginning. The thing I wanted to start in the first chapter is it starts with us rehearsing the kids in the auditorium. The high school I was in had 3 buildings, large buildings, A, B, and C building, separated by glass enclosed corridors over a duck pond. We were probably one of the few schools in the United States that had to get duck food every year for our creatures. And anyway, that was the setting. I was in C building, which is where they had the auditorium and chorus rooms and so on. It was a wonderful facility. It was dedicated by a Maine native, Nelson Rockefeller, from Bar Harbor, Maine. He was the governor then of New York. And it was physically a beautiful school, and that worried me too when the riots began, the broken windows, the messing up our lovely school. Anyway, here's how I start the book. Now that Will is dead, maybe I can write about him, at least what I knew about him when we were putting on plays together. It was because of the race riots in Syracuse that William Edward Hoggenback and I met, and it was Will who gave me the chance for the showbiz career I thought I always wanted. Will taught me a lot beyond our collective classrooms. He helped me explore my deeper and darker side, and his instruction was always vibrant, creative, and pulsing with life. And what I loved about him, he was Shakespearean trained. He'd have these metaphors, these extended metaphors. I mean, I don't think the kids appreciated them. I was roaring with laughter most of the time. Here they are up on the stage, and he's going on and on and on with these things. And this is one of his themes, and I didn't make up anything. This is pretty much verbatim. We've got to get the rhythms right. He'd always be yelling to the kids up on the stage while he'd be directing. One time I remember him his red face getting redder, hollering at a ragtag troupe of our fledgling teenage thespians. You kids say you've got to go with the flow. Well, let me tell you, you ain't got no flow. There's no flow in this damn show. There might have been a trickle to begin with, but it's all runoff now. It's stagnant. The flow never got started, cut off at the source. What do you think this scene's about, huh? Boredom and ignorance, mumbling and dullness? For God's sakes, you're putting us all asleep. And they were just teenage kids standing there. I savored such scenes with Will, and I think after a while many of the students did too, after the initial shock of their browbeating. His outrageous fits and wonderful rages, his glorious use of the language were memorable because he was a consummate actor with a great, booming, trained voice. It was as if he were playing the part of the great director, fallen on hard times, struggling to forge a theatrical masterpiece with rubes from the dregs. He could be poetic, too. In fact, he had 3 different names for publishing music. I mean, he could play the piano wonderfully. He was a director, and he's also a writer. He was everything. He could be poetic, too, because of his southern storytelling background. He grew up in Tupelo with Elvis Presley. And again, he was a drunk, so I had to drive him to work every day. He lost his license for drunken driving. He claimed it was too many parking tickets. It was worse than that. And so I'd have to drive him to work, and I couldn't take notes. He'd start saying all this great stuff in the car, and I'd try to remember when I got to school and jot down what I could, but I couldn't get everything. And so with a few nips under his belt, he'd extend his metaphor as far as possible. And this is the same scene. We don't want this scene to drip dry, kids, but to flow. Let's break down this dam you beavers have built with your buck teeth. Let loose the flood. Let it roar down the valley, sweeping everything with it, including the old general store and the pot-bellied stove, even Granny's laundry on the line, even old Granny herself. This scene is key, and it's got to roar with surprise, like the Johnstown flood in Pennsylvania, not trickle and gurgle like Onondaga Creek in Syracuse. Will would pace back and forth as he directed, gesticulating dramatically with his hands, arms, and eyeglasses, which were in his hands as much as on his head. Sometimes the glasses, which usually would tape together, would go flying when Will was in a state of high exasperation. Often he'd try and shove them in his suit coat pocket while directing, and there would usually be one of the bows sticking out. He was such a slob, he'd have food on his suit coat and his shirt and everything. He was just a mess, but wonderful. For the first couple of years of our working together, I was Will's chauffeur, his assistant, his confidant, his drinking buddy, his dresser. When we were rehearsing a production, I was on nearly 24-hour duty. He'd call me at any and all hours. My regular school teacher's life had been turned upside down. I remember when we were doing Inherit the Wind, the play, and we had to take it to Onondaga Courthouse in Syracuse, as well as produce it in the school. And that night, one of the kids got sick, and Ed had called me just before showtime, and he said, and I got used to this after a while, Sandy, could you meet me backstage at 6 o'clock with a box of Kentucky Fried Chicken and a jar of white shoe polish? And I said, sure, Ed. I didn't know what he wanted them for, but I found out when I got to he had to play this man in the play with white hair, so he took the shoe polish and started painting his hair. And in the play itself, we're in the Onondaga Courthouse, incidentally, and he's throwing chicken bombs all over the place as he's doing his part as the Southern gentleman. It was just amazing. And of course there it is midnight, and I'm in the Onondaga Courthouse on my hands and knees picking up chicken bombs so they'll not see them in the morning. I have been teaching English at Monahan in Syracuse since 1967. Our beautiful new award-winning school with the 2 glass walkways spanning a duck pond and connecting 3 buildings accommodated nearly 1,600 students. Well, I've told you this already. A lot of the good, this is what they did. In the race riot days, we had to go, oh boy, once a week we had to go hold hands with the nuns. They had the Catholic schools mixed in with the public schools, and we all had to sit on the floor with a psychologist, incidentally, and discuss all our problems and whatever. They took us up into the mountains of the Adirondacks at the famous Vanderbilt place, and we had to bunk in with different people, but again, Catholic priests, psychiatrists. There were strange cars that would come and go with black windows with American flags on them. I assume those were senators or congressmen or who knows what they were doing. They were listening to all of our conversations and whatnot. This is the type of thing where nobody knew what to do, but they did kick the old Syracuse boys upstairs and gave them a raise probably, and replaced with blood from out of town. My principal came from McLean, Virginia, and I've always been interested in why he came from McLean, Virginia, since that's where the CIA is, and so on. He was really quite a change from what we were used to. But then creative, talented people like Will were being hired even without the proper New York State credentials. In the English department, where I spent most of my time, we had scrapped the traditional year-long courses, such as English 11 Regents and English 12 Basic, in favor of one-semester mini-courses, and the principal had instituted schools within the school programs, such as performing arts, for which Will had been hired to run. Well, I know I'm running out of time, so I'm going to move ahead here. This in the morning, when I used to pick up Will, one more scene with him I want to do here. I picked him up. I lived near him in Liverpool, New York, a suburb of Syracuse, across Onondaga Lake. And I said one morning, I looked at his car that he in the snowbank, and it was an old Nash Rambler full of dents and parked there. Will, you have a rambling wreck for a car, I said. Yes, and it could use a hell of an engineer from Georgia Tech to put it right. Will lived near me off North Star Boulevard in Liverpool. My apartment complex was large and also named North Star. I'm not sure which came first. The apartments of the 4-lane highway adjoining it. The complex of 10 three-story brick buildings was full of employees at the huge GE plant on nearby Electronics Parkway, now, of course, all gone. William Edward Hoggenback was a big, tall man with a handsome head of red, dark hair. When he wasn't playing the role in a play or just being himself, he was a courtly Southern gentleman from Tupelo, Mississippi. He had a dignified demeanor, a jolly disposition, and a wonderful sense of humor. Incidentally, we talked a lot about Mississippi and Maine. Maine has been referred to, as some of you must know, as the Mississippi of the North, and there was a lot of fun doing that. It was the first school day after Christmas vacation in January 1973 when I drove along North Star Boulevard to pick up Will at 7 a.m. It had snowed the night before, and there he was, standing by the side of the road against a snowbank. Proudly erect, he had on a tweed jacket, brown slacks, and unzipped overshoes, and he was bareheaded, but with a bright red muffler wrapped around his neck. No winter coat, for he was always losing them. He'd lose 4 or 5 winter coats during the winter, but he always had the red muffler. His battered old black briefcase, crammed with his compositions, stood at his feet. He held a coffee mug in one hand and was singing at the top of his lungs. This is 7 in the morning. Good morning, Will, I said, reaching across the front passenger seat of my desk, my dark green 1969 Mustang, to open the door for him. I hope your neighbors were appreciating your little morning serenade. He laughed, but Will laughed easily. If they have any sense at all, they should have their windows bolted on such an icy morn, and I expect there's enough traffic even at this ungodly hour to drown out my dulcet overtones. Don't be so sure. Your voice without a mic could fill the Syracuse War Memorial. By the way, what are you singing? Oh, snatches of my favorite arias. You know, there's nothing like a good aria to clean up one's constricted throat early in the morn. I feel like a giant winter bird waking up to the frozen landscape. A bird who forgot to go south for the winter? Yes, a dumb, directionless bird who has lost his way and has to pick himself out of the snowbank with no prospect of finding nary seed nor worm. Another of God's little jests. Yes, God, the supreme jester, is ever at it, strewing our hope-filled road to happiness with huge boulders and drop-offs and sudden avalanches which block our way. This is how we could talk all the time. I love trying to get Will going with such talk and his theatrical palaver. He was my real-life vitamin Flintock, the old ham from the Dick Tracy comics, who was always popping vitamin pills and quoting from Shakespeare, the Bible, and ancient philosophers. Will was more into sipping from a bottle than popping pills, but his head was full of handy quotations and wonderful-sounding nonsense for most occasions. Do you have the songs ready for the kids this afternoon, I asked. Yes, indeed I do. I can hardly wait to try them out. I think you might enjoy a couple of them. I became positively inspired Christmas morning of all times and sat right down and composed like crazy. I'm not sure my wife and daughters appreciated the piano playing so early in the morning, but you gave me some good stuff. Well, anyway, that's just the beginning, the introduction to this man I spent some time with. I didn't know about his drinking. He was on his best behavior for the first few weeks that fall semester. But then all of a sudden one day he came in, and Ed always walked like he was, the great director. He was always he would strut in, even though there'd be a big stain on his pants or something. But anyway, he came in that morning, and out of his briefcase he took this bottle of Listerine, a huge bottle of Listerine, and he said, "I've got a very bad sore throat. I've got to go to the boys' room." So off he went. And one of the black kids came out and said to me, "Mr. Phippen, he's drinking that Listerine." I said, "Well, he's got a very bad sore throat." "I don't think you're supposed to drink that stuff, are you?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." And anyway, Ed marched, and after a while, everybody, he didn't bother with a Listerine bottle anymore. It was a straight bottle of whiskey or whatever he was drinking that day. I was hiding whiskey bottles for 3 years. I always thought someone was going to come down and blow the whistle on the scene. Another wonderful scene a few weeks later. He was out on the stage rehearsing the play, and one of the kids ran out into I was in the chorus room, ran in and said, "Mr. Phippen, Mr. Sturtevant's dead." And I said, "Oh no," and of course he was dead drunk. And I went, there he is, laying on the floor with all the kids standing around, and I said, "Have you ever heard the expression, dead drunk kids? Well, that's what your teacher is." And they learned, he was a mean drunk though, he was funny. He'd come and he'd say, "Oh, the show must go on," no matter what. Well, anyway, I hope that the book gets published, but we'll see, okay? Thank you.